रेडियो उड़ान की सभी अपडेट्स लेने के लिए इस चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कीजिए, इस वीडियो को ज्यादा से ज्यादा लाइक, शेयर और कमेंट कीजिए। एंड फॉर मोर इन्फो लॉग ऑन टू www.radioudan.com।
Radio Udaan, Radio Udaan, a flight of light. We are headed for a flight of light. We are headed for a flight of light. Radio Udaan, a flight of light. Radio Udaan, Radio Udaan.
You're listening to
Radio Udaan,
A Flight of Life.
Hi everyone, my name is Karthik and welcome to the Eyestem webinar. Again, this is our 7th webinar. So today we have some amazing people who've done really well for themselves in the tech industry. We're going to talk about their experiences working in the industry, how they've been able to come here in their entire journey, some of the challenges that they might have faced and how they overcame those challenges, the tools, technologies, strategies that they've used to be successful blind tech professionals. But before we get started, I wanted to take a minute and really step back and think about where we've come so far. So we started off with just an introduction to Eyestem and what we do and how we can help you. And then we moved on to talk about some of the tools and technologies that are available to be a successful math and science student, where we talked about a lot of software and hardware that you could potentially use. We then brought in a couple of organizations from India and the US to talk about some of the research that they're doing to make math science accessible, but also generally in the space of accessibility. So we had, for example, IIT Delhi come in and talk about their solutions for education and mobility. We had iData, which is this really cool project in the US that seeks to make astronomy more accessible. And then recently we had Microsoft Research come in and talk about their work. Last episode, we talked to a couple of universities in India who shared the different accommodations available, what they were doing to make their universities more inclusive, their cultures more inclusive. So that was a really interesting discussion. We also, I think, had a really cool discussion after the webinar where it was also a learning experience for the universities in terms of what they were doing and how they could collaborate. Now today, we want to give you a sense of, okay, well, what happens after you've had your degrees or you've studied at these universities or you've completed your programs? How does the corporate life look like? Or, what if you want to go into entrepreneurship? Like, how does that look like? So we wanted to meet these people and get a perspective on that. So we have 3 amazing speakers today. We have Balaji, who is a software engineer. He's been in the industry for quite a while. We have Srinivasu, who works in the core accessibility space. Again, been in the space for a really long time. And then we have Prateek, who's been an entrepreneur. So, really different perspectives, but really cool perspectives, all in the tech industry. So there's absolutely a lot that you can do. We were hoping to get a product or project manager as well to talk about their experiences, to just share with you that it's not necessarily just coding. Unfortunately, we couldn't do that because of certain, conflicts. But the point that I want to get across is there's so much that you can do in technology. It does not just necessarily have to be coding. So with that, I'm going to ask Balaji to unmute himself and share his journey and his experiences in the industry, the challenges he's faced, and so on. So over to you, Balaji.
Yeah. Hi, Karthik, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Balaji. I'm basically from Bangalore. And I have finished my BE in computer science. Actually, I'm a late-blind individual. I have this condition, what is called retinitis pigmentosa, where you start losing your vision gradually. So for me, it started when I was 13, and fortunately, till when I was 28 years, I could at least see a little, which actually enabled me to study in an integrated school and do things like any other sighted child would be doing or learning things. But one thing which I wanted to stress here is, like, typically what happens is when you get into a scenario where you are able to see something yesterday and you're not able to see something the next day, there are 2 ways of looking at it. One, you can actually feel totally depressed, demotivated, saying, why me and why has this happened to me? There's another way of looking at it, saying, okay, it has happened to me, what do I do next? And fortunately for me, I think I took the other approach. At that age, I didn't really know in what way it would affect me in the future, but I just took it as, okay, this has happened to me, let me see what happens. And I moved on with my schooling. There were challenges in the sense that technology was not so advanced as it is today. Today you have so many tools, you have so many low vision aids, you have so many equipments or assistive devices that are available, which would actually have made my life more easier. But though it was not there, what helped me or what actually motivated me to move on is the fact that your faculties are still intact. That is, you still have the ability to think, you still have the ability to remember, you still have the ability to correlate and then understand things, grasp things, ask questions and move on. And that helped me actually finish my education and come up to a stage where I am. There were challenges during my school or college experiment labs, for example. If I take a chemistry lab and we had those titrations, you depend on the color change, for example. I wouldn't be able to make out, but one thing is I knew what should happen, and so I would tell the professor saying, sir, I know this is what is the expected result, and for whatever condition of mine, I'm not able to make it. So when it happens, you let me know and I'll record the readings for you, and you can actually judge me based on that. So to that extent, they were understanding and accommodative. And I didn't really face much of a difficulty during my schooling or during my college, to say exactly. But when it came to profession, I started off with a company called Faculties India, which was primarily a very small company which was dealing with a client called Securities Dealing System. They were primarily into the real-time trading and market data domain. So I joined there as a software engineer, and we were actually coding on what is now obsolete. We used to do something called PC++ and Windows SDK and things like that. But I had a very understanding boss who knew that you not being able to see is not going to affect you in any way, as long as you're able to achieve what is expected of you. For example, I hadn't learned much of VC++ or Windows SDK in my college. We just had pure C, but on the job there are many things that I learned through the process of my induction and initial training period. And I always had an inquisitive mind where I used to ensure that I questioned and made sure I understood things, tried to correlate things to what wherever possible, and remember as much as possible. So that would give me an advantage of me being on par with my sighted peers. Today, for example, you have so many IDs which makes life so easy for you. When you look at those days, some 20 years back or something, we did have IDs, but not as advanced as what we have today. For example, if you look at Windows programming, you will be making method calls which used to have some 11 parameters and 12 parameters and so on. So it is not practically possible for you to just remember everything and anything. But there are ways and means whereby you quickly go and refer another place and then refer to it, copy paste, and then do and move on. So those small tricks that any sighted person would be doing is what I used to actually map onto, and then I used to proceed, and then that helped me actually to be on top of the entire employee community. In fact, my employer would regard me much higher than any other sighted person. That is primarily because of the way you were able to focus and you were able to deliver what is expected of you. But then things were good till around 2000. I could see a little bit at least during the daytime, but in 2000 all of a sudden it was a total loss where I went totally blind, and it was okay, now what to do? So I wasn't aware of any technology, and I was not connected to people like me, and that was a drawback to a great extent, because I didn't know what is the next step. And later, fortunately for me, I happened to read an article about a person by name Gitavani Shamana, who had written who was working as a technical writer in Talisman, and she had said that you can work on the computer using the aid of a screen reader called JAWS, and with that you can do anything that pretty much a sighted person would be able to do. So I just met up with her, and then she gave me a demo copy of it, and from then on it was like, wow, like things are now back to normal, like I can do anything myself. But unfortunately things were not that very easy for me, because people were not very sensitive, or they were not very aware as to what a screen reader could do and how it would actually help you to be more self-reliant and do your work yourself. So for almost 6 years, I actually had to take the help of a human assistant who would actually read out stuff for me, and then I had to rely on his mood to see to it that my work was actually going smooth. Fortunately for me, he was a guy who understood me well, and he did the level best. But later, over the period of time, my boss realized that things are not going to work, because if he's not going to come for a day, then what am I going to do on that day? That became a big challenge, and finally they started allowing me to use JAWS. But overall, like at any point of time, what I always used to think is I should not let go of my confidence, or I should not feel that I am actually much less than anybody else, and that helped me to come to the stage where I am today. And yes, after a few years though, like after I started using the screen readers, like I was able to get whatever information I needed myself. Like like when you have a screen reader, when you have a computer in front of you, there are a lot many things that you can do which you wouldn't otherwise have been able to do. And then with the advent of other apps on the mobile, like it made me become more and more independent and self-reliant. So I have taken various roles. Like I started off as a software engineer, then I was a project lead, I was a project manager for some time, then I was a product manager. But then things were going on well, and then I said, okay, I just wanted to take a reverse, and then currently I thought, let me just switch to a role where I can do something on my own, where I'm dependent on, I'm responsible for the work that I do. So I have now actually taken up an individual contributor's role, where I primarily develop backend code, primarily in Java, which uses the Spring framework. What I would like to say, like many people, like when you talk to them, when you say that you do program, we first think, how is it possible? How can a blind person program? Or is it really possible? Or is it just that this fellow is just saying things? But that's not the truth. Like, see, what I would again say is, yes, you have lost the ability to see, but your other faculties are still intact. There are challenges that you may face, but there are ways of getting around it. There are ways whereby you can actually get to understand what you need to, and actually be on par with the other sighted people. So that's what I would want to say, and yeah, that's it, Karthik. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was very insightful. So we can now have Srinivas, if you can unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Balaji, if you could mute yourself. I'll mute myself. All right, over to you.
All right. Firstly, thank you, Karthik, and everybody at Eyestem for having me here on this forum. As Karthik said, my name is Srinivasu. I've been a person with low vision from my childhood. Interesting enough is till 97, that is when I was in my 10th standard, I knew that I have a problem with my eyes, and we've been going around the doctors for a while, and once I also got a surgery done for my left eye, of course, which was not a successful one. But till my 10th standard, that is in 97, I did not know that people with blindness could actually study, and there are schools for visually impaired people. In spite having such a school in my own village itself. Interestingly, how I got to know is there was an invigilator who came to our examination center, and she said, "Oh, why are you looking so closely to the paper?" I said, "Well, teacher, I cannot see well. I can only see with my one single eye." Then she was asking, "Why did you not study in school for the blind people?" I said, "What are you joking? Do blind people really study?" So that is how my introduction to blindness actually got started. But then when I joined my 11th standard in Hyderabad, I went to college literally for a couple of weeks, because in those days, if you're a person with low vision or if you're a person with blindness, you are left with no option but to take a history, economics, civics, or if you really insist them, if you bother them, they might end up giving you commerce, economics and civics. So I opted history, economics and civics, and within 2 weeks I realized that this is not something I would be keen to do. Accidentally or fortunately, I got to see the use of computers in a railway counter, and I really felt fascinated about it. But I went around, those are the days about 98, 99, where it was the institutes who teaches the basic computers were very popular. Like you have Optech, NIIT, and every street like today how we see every street has a lot of restaurants. We used to have a lot of computer training centers in every streets. Of course, not for people with disabilities. So in Hyderabad city, I went almost every one of them, asking if they could teach me. The response is that, we are afraid you cannot see really well, so you may not be able to learn computers. At least we can't teach you. But to begin with, I went to something called Andhra Mahila Sabha, where I learned the typing. So typing was, though it's a club for women, they are allowed boys who are people with disabilities. So I got to learn the typing from there. Then I didn't know what to do, but got to know through some people there will be some training centers in Bombay. So I ended up at the National Association for the Blind in India, where they said, okay, we don't have any computer courses, but you can do a telephone operating course. I said, okay, I need to pass some time and identify the training centers around Bombay at least. So I joined that course. Then I also learned the stenography, which is a braille shorthand and typing. Okay, I passed out both those courses, but in the meanwhile, while doing that, I was actually got to the something called Shramik Vidyapit, which is the Government of India enterprise, where the teacher said, well, I don't know how to teach, but let's together experiment. That is how I got an introduction to use of computers. Of course, with no screen readers. Okay, we used to just magnify whatever is there on the windows. Okay, that is about when we're talking about Windows 95 and 97. Whatever little we could do, not even a magnifier, we used to just increase the font size and things like that, and change the color schemes, all such sorts of things. So that is how I got touch base with the computers. Then one fine day I met with this Professor Ray, who heads the Industrial Design Center in IIT Bombay. I expressed my interest to him, saying I would like to learn computers. He said, okay, you can come to my office. We can dedicate you one computer. We'll also give you access to IIT library, not even IDC, the entire IIT Bombay library. But only condition is that you should not bother any of us to teach you anything. We won't teach you anything. If you get into some problem, it's your problem, you figure out. And that gentleman, you guys can imagine, if there's somebody who doesn't have zero knowledge of computers and you give them a Macintosh computer to start learning with. So that is how he's actually given. So, well, he also gave me a full internet access, got access to library. So I got to learn a few things. And somehow, when I was browsing through websites, I developed an interest to design the websites. So, and there are those days itself, I found free hosts and the Microsoft front page and all that. So I started building the websites using the templates while working somewhere as a a clerical job to get my expense. Then one fine day I got to know from NAB India that NAB Karnataka is looking for somebody who can teach the computers. So I moved to Bangalore and I started working as running the Braille production unit, as well as started their computer training center for visually impaired people. Thanks to Microsoft those days for sponsoring that both the initiatives of NAB Karnataka. So I started teaching basics like Microsoft Office Suite, Internet, and Outlook kind of things to people. And then we have another colleague who used to teach the VB and C and C++. During those days, I wanted to build a website for the organization, which they did not have that time. So with the group of few volunteers from GE, we built a very beautiful looking website. This I'm talking about 2001. So on those days, JavaScript is just came in, and Flash is very popular. Everyone loved using it, and using the layout tables, images with no alternate text, and kind of things, forms with no labels. So we built a stunned, beautiful website. And just before the launch, I figured out our own students with vision impairment cannot use the website. So that has triggered me to start thinking towards accessibility. Of course, I didn't have any knowledge of the professional accessibility that time, but we just with the common sense, we made some changes and made the website usable. And further, I moved to Hyderabad and started another computer training center with a government college for people with vision impairment, since I'm basically from Andhra Pradesh. But I used to live in Hyderabad for some time. So we wanted to make sure we wanted to start something for people with vision impairment in Hyderabad in the area of technology. And then I got a chance to work with a CBSE school in North Karnataka, where I was actually teaching computers from first standard to 10th standard students, mainstream students, not people with vision impairment. So this is all career opportunities which has come unplanned in my life. And then one fine day, my mentor, teacher and colleague Shilpi Kapoor, who is the founder director of Barrier Break, has pinged me on one of the messengers saying that, hey Vasu, would you like to start working in the area of accessibility? Would you like to join us? Well, that actually fascinated me and I was really excited. So I moved to Bombay and joined Barrier Break, which was then called as Net Systems Informatics. And that gave me a starting point to get into the accessibility sector by learning WCAG, Section 508 and all those things. And during the time, I don't say I'm always successful. Within first 6 months, we figured out I'm not good at accessibility testing. Because I was never able to test a website properly that time, those days. But they found me, I'm good at talking to people. So I was moved into marketing team for accessibility, where I had a chance to talk to people across the country and internationally. And I was also training people a little bit on accessibility, and I was also selling the assistive technology products which they just started at that time. I was also fortunate enough to be part of an initiative called TechShare India, which started in 2008, and then it ran for a few more years. It's an international conference and exhibition. And in 2010, this is another thing. I never write a professional resume for myself, but I always used to keep my LinkedIn profile up to date, as neat as I can. And in 2010, a gentleman called Sandeep Datar, who used to head the UX in Yahoo India, has reached out saying that Yahoo is looking for an accessibility specialist. And I said, okay, I would like to explore, and then location is Bangalore. And things went well, and I joined Yahoo in India. and built the accessibility practice, which is similar to what we have in the US, which was led by Alan Brightman and Victor Saran. And during my time at Yahoo, I had a chance to work with a lot of front-end engineers and train a lot of front-end engineers in accessibility, and also build the accessibility practice in Middle East, Singapore, and China. And that gave me an opportunity to work with a lot of popular products of Yahoo. Things like Yahoo Mail, Yahoo Weather, Yahoo Sports, Yahoo homepage itself, and Yahoo Messenger. That was an interesting journey at Yahoo. Yahoo is definitely always a good company. And also I had a chance to do a lot of community work with Yahoo. Like we hosted a accessibility summit with the W3C, and we did a lot of events with NASCOM and things like that. And in 2012, Yahoo is actually laid off about 3,000 people. And though it could be an unfortunate, but for me it turned out to be a fortunate thing. Though I was one of the people who got laid off. The reason why I would say it is a fortunate or lucky and good layoff is I was able to find my new job within about 2 months' time. Well, Yahoo did not laid us off just like that, but they gave us about 6 months check. I got about 4 offers. One is from Informatica, PayPal, Infosys, on Facebook. Facebook the location is out of India, and at that time I was not ready to move to US, so I rejected their offer, and they hired somebody else in that position. And Infosys was delayed just about 2 days of their offer, so I had to reject that, but I recommended for somebody else. And between PayPal and Informatica, I have chosen PayPal for some reasons. And Informatica also asked me to refer somebody, so I referred somebody else. So 1 layoff is equal to 4 jobs, and I joined PayPal, by the way. The reason why I say this is, if I'm actually rejecting an opportunity, I will continue the conversation with them and be sure that they will actually hire somebody else. I just don't tick the decline button and move on. Because especially when it is accessibility, we should encourage more companies to actually do the work. And at PayPal, I worked for about 2.5 years. And then I wanted to see how the service industry in India, and I joined HCL. I worked with them for a few months. One good thing that they did to me is that they gave me an opportunity to work with products like YouTube, Google Search, and Google Hangouts. And that is how I got access to people in Google. But the flip side of HCL is that I was also asked to be part of the pre-sales process, which, sorry to say this, but in service industries, I don't know about in other countries, but in India, I don't generalize this statement, but a lot of these companies, they just want to sell their services, but without real passion. And while you do not have real expertise in your team, you have to go and tell the customer, oh, I have a beautiful team of 40 people. Okay, and that's how people sell it. But unfortunately, I don't really appreciate that, because especially when it comes to accessibility, if team does something wrong, it's not only affecting the company, it's actually affecting the users like you and me, okay, at the end. So that's actually something I didn't like, so I moved on from HCL and I joined DQ, another accessibility consulting firm, which they also have an office in India. And that gave me another opportunity to go back and work on the accessibility assessments, where actually, in fact, I gained more knowledge working with them and doing the very professional accessibility audits. Because when companies like Yahoo and all, you don't really write the accessibility reports, you just file the bugs. But at GQ, I had a chance to write the real professional statements and things like that. And then post that for some reasons we want to move back to Bangalore, and the person who has joined Informatica in 2012 is actually moving out of India, and he's resigned from Informatica. So I just called up his boss and say, I'm available. So at Informatica, I led accessibility efforts globally. And initially they just started the accessibility practice because of the regulatory requirement in the US. Because if you are selling a product in the US for the federal government, you need to be write the VPATs, and you need to talk a little bit about accessibility at least. But I put my efforts to turn that into real compliance. And especially the companies into transition and moving into cloud, it will be a perfect time for us to actually address accessibility at the early stage. So I'm a believer that accessibility, if started at the beginning, they actually save a lot of costs. Okay, but that doesn't mean that everyone could do that. And accessibility, though it is important, but I believe that we should also understand the developer perspective. Okay, so it's not their job is not only work on accessibility. So when as an accessibility specialist, what we should be doing is we should actually give them information in such a way it encourages them to work on it. Okay, the approach that I take is I not only report the bugs to them, but I do a little bit of research and give them the possible solutions, possible techniques. Then the person will say that, wow, this guy has done something to me, so I should actually at least look at it and see what I can do further. So across my career, what I do is that I try to make friends. So when I join in any company, first 3-4 months, what I do, in fact, if possible, I do continue it later as well. Every day or every week, I have a breakfast with somebody whom I don't know. I invite somebody just by looking at the directory, okay, and I have breakfast with them. It could be a junior developer, or it could be a manager, or it could be a leadership person, or anybody. And another thing, what I do is, especially accessibility is such an area where you need the buy-in from not just by developers, but also product managers, leadership, and everybody. So I make sure I create visibility for myself. That does not mean that I just go on to each cubicle and say that I am XYZ. What I do is that I participate in every single company events, and especially things like CSR, diversity and inclusion, and I also write to people when you receive the communication from HR and all. I write back to them saying that, oh well, you just embedded an image and it is not accessible, but this is how it should be doing. And I don't write in a very rude manner or something. I just write in such a way that they will actually invite me for a coffee and we talk about it. So always I feel that if we actually build the relationships, we actually solve the problems quite a bit. And when it comes to employment today, the mindset of employers is quite a bit changed compared to the last couple of decades. Today, employers are willing to hire people with disabilities. Of course, there will be challenges within the company in terms of accessibility of digital tools. I'm pretty sure Karthik could back me up in saying that even within Microsoft, you'll have the problems. Even within Google, you'll have the problems. Okay, any company for that matter. But what we should be doing is when we get into the company, and people will always listen to you. We will understand your problem. You need to bring them up what is the problem, and with a possible solution, not just pinpoint the problem. And another thing is that we, especially when people are starting their career, you should be flexible in moving anywhere. I kept seeing some communication recently in some forums. I am from XYZ city and I would actually prefer a job from here or work from home option. There might be some constraints and all that, but when you are starting your career, as much as possible, you should be flexible in moving anywhere or grab any opportunity that comes into your life. And secondly, since I believe this forum also has the people who are just either into the education or about to start their careers or things like that, I want to talk about career development. One of the things is that whatever we do in in life, in career especially, we should be passionate about. And if you want to move on to the job, say in this generation, one of the things we see is that, okay, every 1 year, 1.5 year, or 2 years, people want to putting their resumes to somewhere and start switching jobs. That gives them the increment in the monetary perspective. But in the long run, it's not a good thing. Because when you're actually looking out for a leadership positions in the future, there will be apprehensions. You only worked each place for 1 year, 2 years and all. How do you actually understand the people? How do you actually be capable of a leadership position? So that will be a very big problem. But here are the 3 reasons I generally look at to switch a job. One is I said which happened to us at Yahoo. If there's a layoff and you're asked to go, you have no choice. And secondly, if there is a job that you are convinced to take up when you are actually joining, but after a few months you put in all your great efforts, all possible efforts, but you realize that this is not your cup of tea, okay, then that would be a reason for you to start exploring the other opportunities. But you should alarm the company why you are doing it. And see all possibilities, what best you can do to continue if everything goes well. And third is, of course, if you are worked for about 3-4 years and somebody is offering you from, if your check is about 3 lakhs and if you're getting about 10 lakhs, why not? So there will be some exceptional scenarios where you can consider switching jobs. So in all these 3 aspects have actually happened to me in my life. And further, I personally love talking to people. I write blogs. I love playing chess. I love playing in the water, though I'm not really a great swimmer. Not even a good swimmer though. But I live in Bangalore with my wife and 2 children. One is about 5 years and the other one is about 2 years. And besides that, I write both the personal level, where I talk about the experiences, and I write about travel, I write about places, I write about success and things like that. And another blog I write about the accessibility on something called serveomeinclusion.com, where I write about accessibility, assistive technology, disability, and any reviews and things like that. And I also keep hosting the talks at various places. Like I go to the companies and talk to them on every once in 2 weeks. And we also do a meetup, which happens once in 2 months in Bangalore for now, which we intend to bring them up to other places later. So I think we are good. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks, Karthik.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yes, I will back you on Microsoft internal tools also not being perfectly accessible. Yes, it does happen. But I think, as you said, the trick really is to figure out these other ways to really, figure out how you can best do your job. Can you write scripts to get, like, for example, data when others are visualizing that data? All of those things. There are different ways to work around. I think the whole point being, you just need to innovate. You just need to be sure that there's, you need to be confident enough that there'll be a way to do it. So that definitely works out.
If there are any questions and answers, feel free either at the end of the Pratik or whatever.
Yeah, we'll take them at the end. Yeah, cool. So if you could mute yourself, I'll mute myself. Pratik, over to you.
All right, so I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Okay, right, good enough. I think it's been wonderful listening to Balaji and the Srinivasu bro. I personally got to learn a lot, and Karthik, I have been learning a lot from. I mean, I've seen the way you have inspired a lot of us, especially about how to take up science and math. So I think it's a great panel and it's a great opportunity to be here. In fact, before I tell about myself a little bit, I would like to start from saying that people who are connected with the Eyestem, I think you're really, really very lucky, because when I have been in starting my career, I really dreamt that there is something that allows you to to learn things like math, science, and then the things like programming. I mean, I would tell about how it worked for me, but I really wish it was available at the time that I've been working for my career. So I was born in this city called Jaipur. Jaipur is called Pink City, and it's in India. It's a state called Rajasthan, which is where I was born. When I was born, when I was about possibly 5-6 months old, my parents detected that there's something unusual about this kid. They thought I wasn't able to catch the objects that were thrown to me, like the toys and other things that are thrown to kids. And they found I wasn't able to catch them. So they consulted a doctor, and after tests and whatever the diagnostics, the doctor said, this child would not be able to see anything in an entire life. Has a retinal disease, which would not let him see anything. So for my parents, it was like a world shattered. They had no idea whatsoever, what to do about a kid who cannot see. However, they kept on exploring, and firstly some homeschooling, and then kindergarten, and then following the school. I studied in the normal schools, despite of me being totally blind. I used to get into the schools and basically understanding everything from the audible mediums, rely on my ears and rely on what I understand. Later on in the later classes, I used to not only rely on the things that I'm listening, but there were things like homework. So sometimes I used to get the homework. I would dictate mama to write for me and stuff like that. However, the things like maths and science is something that really fascinated me. That's in my primary education, and for interesting reasons, I was able to score well. In fact, for more than 2-3 times, I have been able to score like top 2 or top 3 in the entire school. So and science math has been one of the things that I really both used to love and score well. So somehow this gave me the opportunity to be kind of favorite of my teachers and ask more questions. And when I asked more questions, they answered all my questions. I guess I've been very fortunate in respect. So one fine day, what happened, we had a talk in our school where there was this big company CEO that came and has been telling about entrepreneurship, has been telling about how is it like running a business. And that really fascinated me. I think that might have been when I was in 5th or 6th standard. And that really fascinated me. I felt like, man, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to be CEO of a company, and I want to do something about computers. But then I had no idea how to do it. The idea, when I used to see people playing games, or I used to see people kind of listening songs. At that time, computer was still very new, and we're talking about year 2002, 2003. The computer was sort of new, especially to the home and school environment. I used to see people playing games or listening songs, to really get really fascinated. I used to, think about how is it possible for me to be able to access, but there was really no way. I used to ask all my friends. Nobody would tell me anything because they had no idea how to, tell me what they're seeing on the computer, even if they tried their best. And like Srinivasu brother told, I also got to so many of those computer institutions, which are obviously not for people with vision impairment, but normally those who are around the streets, all small and big names. And everyone said, we don't know how to teach you. Not that they didn't want me to teach, but they had no idea whatsoever. They sometimes tried their best, but then they did not understand how exactly do they help me, operating a computer that they can see and I cannot at all. Some of them tried teaching me some typing, and I did get to learn a little bit of typing without looking at it, but that's all that I could learn without looking at. And then I got to know that there's something called screen reader, and I think that transformed what I have been thinking about my own life, what I've been thinking about disability and possibilities of it. I think that might have been when I was in 7th or 8th standard, back in 2003, 2004. And I think since then I haven't looked back. When I started exploring computers, quickly I got to learn so many things just all by myself, because it's still at this point, though I got to know the screen reader, I started using it. No one around me had any idea whatsoever how the screen reader worked. In fact, when I had installed the screen readers in my computers, and people used to really get annoyed because when you have a screen reader in your computer and people would not understand how to operate the computer then by themselves. Sometimes when you press the key and for some reason it responds a little late, there's some latency, of course. So then they would think like I kind of ruined the computer or something that has been done in the computer which should not have been done. However, I did not have a computer at home, but I used to somehow install my software in the computers of some other people that I knew at the time. And I remember I was using a 40-minute demo version because I did not have money to buy a screen reader. So every time I would start and work for about 35 to 40 minutes, then restart the computer and work. So I explored all the different things by myself, just by learning from the names. So if I press something and it says new, then I would assume that there's something new that would be created, and I would explore. I would ask questions. Sometimes some people would respond, and slowly this is how I learned. And the same way I got into programming. I used to really get very fascinated about how the things are developed at the other side of the coin. Like, how is it actually built, the software, the technologies that I was using at the time? You really get fascinated about it. So asking questions. Sometimes when I got to learn internet a little bit, then I used to research on the internet, find the ways to learn, and that's how I kind of got fascinated into it. And when I was in at the end of my 10th standard, and like everyone at the verge of deciding what I want to do in my life, I chosen computer science, I chosen math and science, and I have been wanting to be an engineer. Now, when I shared this idea, no one around me except my parents have been convinced at all that this is something that a blind person can do. In fact, everyone ridiculed me. Everyone said, like, you're good to, do some arts, or maybe the commerce, if at all, but not something like computer science, and especially the one which is like a PCM combination, wherein you have a lot of diagrams, you have a lot of graphical representations, and of course, they were not wrong in their. They were not wrong in their understanding, I must say. So, however, I kept on going, and I started exploring how I can do. I did my 11th and 12th standard with computer with science and math science, and then it came about entering into an engineering college. I did take examinations, the entrance tests of several engineering colleges. I did get successful into getting into the merits somehow, but what would happen? I would go to their interviews. They would say, we don't know how to teach a person with blindness. Somebody with blindness would not be able to work on computers the same way. And of course, they had the objections about graphical elements, about diagrams, and a lot of those visual aspects. So one college that I really wanted to get in said, we don't have a Braille keyboard.
Hey Pratik, we lost you.
The fact that
Pratik, we lost you for a bit. Can you come back after that college that you wanted to go into as
okay.
Braille keyboard?
Okay. All right. Am I audible now? Is it fine now?
Yes.
Okay. Really sorry if it might be something with the internet. So I think I've been telling you about the entrance test that I've been taking, and that time, one college that I really wanted to get in, I got to the interview table, the counseling or the pre-admission interview. They asked me how, despite of being a blind person, you would be able to study, the graphical elements and computers and everything else. I told them about the technology that I use, and they did not understand anything. They said, they don't have Braille keyboard. How they don't have the Braille keyboard available? I said, you don't need a Braille keyboard. Whatever keyboard that you have, I can type using the same. Some of them in the panel got an email. They gave me their keyboard. They said, this is the keyboard that you have. If you can type something, then we might take it forward. I did type several things. It's not required to necessarily have a screen reader, at least for typing. So I did that, and somehow that sort of given them a little bit of confidence, although they said, typing something on the computer is one thing, but then understanding so many other visual elements is completely another. But after a lot of demonstrations, conversations, and dialogues, they decided to take me on board, take me into the college, give me admission, but on a condition that, we'll try you for one semester, that is 6 months. If you're not able to do, then we won't be able to sustain. And in fact, I had to sign on a paper writing that if I don't perform in 6 months, if I don't understand, then I would not be proceeding with this college. I did that, and fortunately, in about 6 months, not only that I was able to understand what the teachers have been telling, I managed to be in one of the top 3 in the class, and somehow they got convinced that yes, it is possible. If they allow a person with blindness to study. Although at that time, I had no accessibility support available. That college had nothing. They had no idea whatsoever. Neither they was very keen until almost my last semester or so to look at anything in terms of accessibility. So all that I learned was based on curiosity that I had. I used to take a lot of help and support from friends, especially when about the diagrams. What I used to do is the trial and error method. So every time I would want a diagram to be made, what I would do is first I would understand the concept of the diagram, and then I was really famous that time to try every person that I knew in the class or in the school, rather in the college. I would ask them, do you have 15 minutes? I would like you to please make or draw that I want you to make. And I would explain them. And then after it's drawn, we would match with the original diagram that was supposed to be drawn. And that way I mastered how should I explain drawing a diagram that would make sense in the exam. So this went on. And then came the real battle, which is about finding the job. I wanted to be an entrepreneur based on the dream that I saw, that I told you about Swiss League Standard when I heard that talk of that big CEO. However, I did not have any idea about self-employment because one, I had no money. I had no financial resources available at that point of time. And second, I had no confidence about starting the company of my own, anything. my idea initially was that I would take up a job. I would work maybe for a few years, and then when I'll have some finances and probably some more confidence, then I would take this forward. But what happened in the campus interview? I used to perform well in terms of the aptitude test, in terms of the group discussions, and then I would go to the HR rounds. Some HR would really appreciate me, like, we really appreciate you for what you've done. We really find it inspirational, but we can't give you a job. So many of them would say, you're really awesome, but we can't give you a job. And I would always question, if I'm so awesome, why can you not give me a job? Some of them would answer straight away that we don't have accessibility infrastructure, or we're not wanting for somebody visually impaired to come in and work with us. Some would not answer to me directly, but I would get to know from the college that it's the visual impairment which did not, let them hire me. And this happened so many times. Trust me, this happened more than 15 times. Every time I would perform top in the aptitude test, in the group discussion, I would answer all the technical questions in the interview, and then I would learn that I cannot be hired still. Every time I would go back home and cry hard, thinking, what more can I do? Despite of being at the top of academics that I could perform, despite of learning all that I could that had been told to me in the colleges, despite of answering all the questions, what can I do? I really used to cry. I used to wonder. And one fine day, after crying so much, after really being frustrated, I decided, let's sit at the other side of the table. If giving the interview is not working, let's start taking the interview. Let's start a company of my own. And that's where in the late 2010 or sort of 2011 something, I started a company of my own. Again, I had no money. I took 20,000 Indian rupees of loan from a friend, got the company registered. I had an old desktop that I've been using for some freelance work until that time. So that's how I started off. It's been a great journey in terms of the company. Started from, home, from my personal bedroom, and the desktop computer. We now have about 40 plus people working. We have offices about 5 different cities in India, and sales offices and representative around 6 different countries, working with more than 70 countries in terms of clients. So it's been a great journey so far. There have been challenges when it comes to the professional challenges. One of the big challenges that I had was to let my clients believe that a person with blindness. So what used to happen when I started working directly with the local clients, the clients in India, and I would speak to them over the phone. I would discuss the requirement. They would really get so very interested. So let's say I'm one of the 200 people who applied for a job. I would talk to them, and they'd really get so impressed that they would think that this guy is better than all the 199 people. They would call me and say, you come, you just come up with a plan, we'll discuss and get a paycheck and get started the work. I would meet them and they'd get baffled. Say, are you the person who's going to work for us? How a blind person can work? They would ridicule. They would, some of them even said, if you want money, we can give you the money. It's okay, but we don't think that you can work. We can do some charity and give you some money to feed in if that's what you need. So from that point on to to help them believing in me and in the fact that the person with blindness can work as well has been one of the challenges. And then of course the challenges of the business, like every other person would feel, marketing, sales, leads and everything else. Okay, those are general challenges. I won't talk about them so much. So I think it's been an interesting journey. I don't want to talk so much about challenges and things because I guess that would take so much long. But let me outline 2-3 quick things. So, when I started working, when I started hiring people, sometimes the employees that I'm hiring would not understand how is it to be working with person with blindness. And I would, I would, because my way of explaining things or my way of understanding what's happening on their computer were completely different than how they would expect. Let's say if there's a code which they're struggling with, I was able to help them, but I would require them to explain me what exactly is happening, which is different from somebody is able to directly see on the screen. And it took me a while to let my employees understand how I work and how I can help them. But I've been fortunate enough that I've been able to build that culture around my organization. Although I have no other visually impaired or other person with disability in my organization yet, but from that perspective, I've been able to make it inclusive that the people working in my organization are able to understand the challenges that I face, and they're able to at least provide me the information in a way that I can understand and help them understanding what they're struggling with. One of the other challenges that I face even now is about a lot of visual elements with clients especially. So sometimes I don't want to reveal my disability to my clients, mainly because I work online. Most of the clients are from the online platform, then it does not matter to them. Sometimes I don't think that it's important to them to know that I can see. I in fact experienced that sometimes when I would tell them, they would feel discouraged and they would plan hiring somebody else for the job instead of me. So when that happens, sometimes they show some screens, and without knowing that I'm not able to actually see everything that they're showing on the screen, they would point out something which I won't understand, and I would sometimes record those sessions, take help from somebody. Sometimes there are design elements. We develop software, we develop marketing solutions, and there are designs at times, the graphical elements, there are charts, which I take somebody's help to understand. But I think it works out. When you have a passion, when you know what you have to do, when you're trying a little harder, it does work out. That's what I explored and discovered. And like I said at the beginning, the people who are learning now, the people who are wanting to start their career now, I think it's really, really very easy in comparison to what it has been before, because we have a lot of technologies, we have a lot of support available. The corporates are now more receptive. They're more able to understand the challenges. They're now open to give opportunities to different kinds of disability. I mean, people living with different kinds of disabilities. So all that is required, no matter what level you're at. If you're a student, if you're maybe a professional, whatever level that you're at, I think what's more important is to grab the opportunity that you get, is to start from wherever you are at. Don't be stuck. Don't think that if you don't know the stuff, you won't be able to get started. I always think the life philosophy has to be going with the flow. So you keep on learning as you go on. I personally started from freelancing. Back then, in my 11th standard or something, I used to write technical descriptions and manuals for microcontrollers and things like that. That time, I had no idea that I would one day become an entrepreneur and do what I'm doing right now. But I think I kept on learning, kept on exploring, kept on being passionate and trying my best. I still have to work more than 20 hours a day on most of my days, on weekends as well sometimes. So I think it's about working hard. It's about believing in yourself. it's about determination. It's about not giving up. And I think it's about connecting with the right people as well. Right people and right organization like Eyestem, for example, wherein you get the guidance to do what is important to you, the guidance to do what can help you. So I think this is how it is. And maybe there's some questions which we can answer later. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think if anything, there's one common theme that I could identify in all the three speakers' talks, which was passion. You know, be super passionate about whatever you want to do. Be really interested in whatever you want to do. With that, we unfortunately do not have a lot of time, but we'll still open it up to questions, 3-4 questions. So anyone who has a question, either unmute yourself and ask the question or type it in the chat window. Any questions?
Hey, yeah, may I ask a question?
Go for it.
I think I have question for all three speakers. If we had a question break, I would have remembered my question, but I can still Balaji first. Balaji,
could you please say your name so that
sorry. This is Sonal.
Yeah,
This is Sonal Patel. Balaji, nice to know you through in your own words and your experience. I lost my question. Sorry. The question I had. I learned that you learned a lot of things after the age of 28, and I have a curious question. Did you learn Braille afterwards at around that time?
No, Sonal, I have not learned Braille. I have not learned Braille. Only thing what I do is, even today, like I always rely on the what I had seen earlier. Like even now, like for example, as Pratik was saying, diagrams are a challenge even for me. So I always try to correlate things. Like when something is explained, it depends on how you comprehend what has been told to you. So most of the information which is available in text, yes, it is something that you can understand yourself by applying yourself. But if it is something that is pictorial, I always ask somebody to first draw it on my hand so that I get a mental picture of what it is. And then I ask questions based on what they have told me if there is not enough clarity on it. But I have not learned Braille, and it's just been a regular school way of learning that any sighted person would actually have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Balaji. So now Srinivasu, there's so much to learn from you about accessibility from what you said through your series of experiences with various companies. I'm curious if you can say the URL to your blog where you are blogging about accessibility.
It is SERVE, SERVEOMO, M for mother, that is inclusion.com. Yeah.
Serve inclusion, one word.
Serve OMO, inclusion.com. Serveomeinclusion.com.
Serveomeinclusion.com. Okay, thank you very much. And,
no problem.
Thanks. And Pratik, your story, probably if you know Aditi or not, but that reminded me very similar to Aditi's story. But one question, like I think Balaji mentioned earlier, that came to my mind to ask you was, even before you applied to that college of your choice, you struggled with the diagram and representation at time. And so how did you deal with that? You always needed an explanation or some other form of help you received?
Yes, I always did require help in terms of diagrams or any other graphical elements, like, not just diagrams, but let's say in the mathematics, you have a lot of histograms and the stuff like that, even the things like calculus. So what helped me is, one, I am a big fan of Excel, Microsoft Excel, in a lot of aspects. I'm a big fan of it. Sometimes if there is something that I can create, because sometimes if it's possible, you can create certain things in the Excel or the diagrams and charts as well. So that one thing. And then obviously there are parts that I cannot do by yourself, that I would require the help from friends. I have been very fortunate that I got some really good friends who would explain everything that I would ask, and I would really bother them from so many questions. I don't know if it's related, but one thing I want to tell, I think this might help a lot of people. It's important when you're blind to get some good friends. What I used to do as a tip, when I was in engineering, when I was in my first semester, I used to learn the books of second, third, and even fourth semesters only because I wanted to equip myself with more knowledge than what my counterparts have, so that people come, so that I can offer them some value and then ask them for some help. I mean, I don't know if it relates to your question, but I mean, it's important tip. It's an important tip for so many who are, and I think, like Srinivasu brother said, he talks to people over the breakfast. So it's really important then just just beyond what you're doing in academics, what you're doing in your professional work setting, to also have some networking, because when you're a person with blindness or having any other sort of disability, I think that really helps.
Yes, it helps both sides. Like your friends also get a different perspective, while they are explaining, when you ask them questions. And so thank you so much. I think this is absolutely essential. And it could be an add-on to the Seeing AI, where Eyestem level of like STEM help and all that. You can find friends around the world too.
Absolutely.
And I promise that I did not pay Prateek to say good things about Excel. I promise you that.
Okay, you can say, Parthik, more. Add on to that.
Yeah, I completely agree on that friend's point, and I think it's not only about you being able to get assistance when you need it. I think it's very much also a social thing, right? You really want to chill with people, man. To hang out. So, okay. Any other questions?
I have.
Can you say your name before you go, so that I know who you are?
Oh yeah, I have remembered Paris. I'm also Eyestem co-authority member. So I have a question to Prateek. If you could elaborate about your what's
Did you get the question? I don't get the
Okay,
voice.
so the question is, can you talk more? Okay, got it. Can you talk more about your company? What's its name and what do you guys do?
Okay, so the name of the company is DADAL Technovations. That's DAE. That's D for Delhi. DAEDAL Technovations. The company is basically a B2B solution provider. We do software solutions, mobile applications, and digital marketing solutions to businesses. To tell a little example of the kind of applications we do is, let's say we do management, like workflow management systems, let's say for logistic companies, let's say for different pharmaceutical companies or the stuff like that. We develop the end-to-end business management solutions for them, both in the computers and mobile, and then we do their marketing digitally. That's all we do.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I would like to go on. This is me, Abhisar.
Go for it.
I'm audible, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, guys, basically, this question is for all of you. Even I am pursuing engineering right now from NIT Surat, and as we can make out, like most of us have gone through the education system, engineering, or be it commerce or whatever, and we do realize that when we grow up and when things like when corporate sector comes up, so there is a chance that many of friends we have been interacting with, they might be future employees or future entrepreneurs. So I would like to know from you guys that right from the like scratch level, when we connect to these people, right from that level, how do we encourage these people that when they go into the corporate sector, that time the issues which you guys have faced, so that doesn't happen.
Okay. Can I go first? This is Srinivasu.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I completely understand what has happened with the Pratik's case, but I'm not sure. In fact, it's a question to Pratik as well. While I gave this particular answer, one of the exercises we as students has to do while we are actually in the college, actually get networked with the campus recruitment team. Who actually handles with the corporates from our campus, and actually convince these people and actually work with them to how they will actually demonstrate this particular situation to the employers and does not give them as a surprise. Okay, because when actually companies come as a surprise, the chances are more that they would not be. In fact, they will not have time to think about or actually have a conversation with you and so on. Because at my company, I also keep going to campuses when recruitment happens, so I know how they really work. A little bit. So it's actually as soon as we join in a college, we should also start networking with the people, the placement cells, and start talking to them. And wherever there's an opportunity, apart from when you have a time and when there is actually something happening with the recruiters, you should actually go and network and talk to them and actually sense your a presence. Okay, so by then, if the employers who comes to your organization, college, will also get to know a little bit about disability. And in fact, when the college is actually convinced to give you the admission, when they're actually approaching the employers, they should also give them a disability sensitization. That is how we should actually prepare our placement cells to make such a thing happen.
Okay.
Nice, thanks.
Anyone else who wants to take it?
Your opinions, please.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, so as far as I can understand the question, I think you're asking the friends. You're asking like the people that your counterpart, that are friends. How do you make them aware about? So I think one best thing that you can inspire or make them aware about accessibility and challenges and everything is to set the example of what you're doing. And that's the number one thing. If you're doing good, if you're inspiring from what you're doing in your schools or colleges, I think that would help them remembering you whenever they work, in any part of their career. And at some point or the other, they might think about accessibility initiative. That's number one. And second, like Srinivasu brother told, and yes, you're right. I did not, I did not know about what should I do. My college unfortunately had not been supporting me when it comes to demonstrating with, the employers or the HR persons whatsoever. All that they did was providing me equal opportunity to appear in the exams, and that's all. They said everything else we have no intervention. At least that's how it has been. I did not know any person that point of time, and which is why I said at the beginning of when I've been talking that now those of you who are starting the career now are extremely fortunate because we have the networks like Eyestem available. When I have been there, I had nobody known. I really used to search for somebody that I could kind of present as an example to these companies, and trust me, I really knew nobody. And the people that I knew were not ready to help, unfortunately. I don't want to name, but I have been unfortunate enough that at least at the right time when I needed, it did not come as a help to me. So I think we're really fortunate we're starting up now, and you should really leverage the networks like these as well, wherein, let's say the communities like Eyestem, where you have mentors supporting you, where you have people who are working in the industry who can be the examples, both for you as well as others. Like Srinivasu brother, now he has been in the accessibility industry, and I think a lot of people from the company that he worked with would think about hiring more people because he's been such a great employer.
Right.
Awesome. And I have one free advice for you, Avasar. Get them to join us at the next hackathon. They will know what accessibility means.
Can you please pardon, Karthik?
I'm saying I have one free advice for you. Get them to join us at the next hackathon.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Whatever said and done now, Abhisar, like challenges are always going to be there. Like for example, no, sensitization is happening. It's like it is not to an extent that it was. I mean, things are pretty much improving now, and they are actually to a great extent. But still, you will face challenges. So you may get into a corporate. Okay, you will still feel that you're not being treated on par with others. You may sometimes feel that they are actually taking you for granted and things like that. But trust me, you just focus on what you are doing. That is, do well in your job, and you will be recognized for what you are, what you deserve. That is something that nobody can snatch out of you. Yeah, there are times here. If you see in a country like India, you will sometimes feel like, okay, like the other guy is actually being treated better than me, or he is actually being paid more than me, and things like that. It may hurt, but if you can look at it the other way, like you can just say, okay, fine, let me just do what I am supposed to do for what I am being paid for, and let me just focus my thoughts and energy on something else. So that is the only way for us to actually stay positive and move ahead. Otherwise, it fills us with a lot of negativity. Like there are certain things which are not in our control.
Right.
You can study, you can excel, you can get into a job, you can get a good name, you will be reputed, you can get a good salary, all that. But the reality of life is, let us accept the fact that life is not always fair to us. Okay, that acceptance, if it comes now.
And just to add to Balaji, we should just be committed, like how Karthik is doing today. Why would he have to get up at 5:30 in the morning and join this call? And we have to be think in the lines of what we can do rather than what others can do for us.
Right.
Just do your bit, just do it well, and then things will actually fall in place.
Yeah.
Ignore what has to be ignored. That's it.
Two more thoughts to add to that. I think one thing though to remember always is that oftentimes it does happen, sometimes happens with me as well, where we often start ascribing disability to anything and everything that goes wrong, which I think is again wrong. So realizing that there are many factors. We are no perfect human beings. There are things that we need to work on, we need to improve. I think that's really important. And just the realization on things that we need to improve, I think is by in itself, a great starting point to make that progress, to improve yourself as a person. And I think the second thing, of course, is definitely not discounting the importance of advocacy as a person with a disability for yourself or for other people with disabilities, right? So just making sure that you do that in subtle ways. Of course, don't come across as aggressive that, hey, this is not accessible, I'm going to sue your company. All of this happens in the States all the time. Well, that's not what you want, right? I mean, you want to be like, okay, well, I'm, as Srinivasa said, we want to work with you. Like, I'm not telling you what the problem is. I'm also coming up with a solution and really being with you to make that happen. And that is something that people really appreciate in the corporate. Like, I mean, they want solutions. They understand this. Like, I've seen a lot of the stuff at Microsoft where, some of my own team's products have been completely broken and inaccessible. And, I sent out this huge report on the bugs, but that doesn't help. I've got to go a step go a step further. And the idea is, well, I mean, my job necessarily is, I mean, it's not related to accessibility. So
voluntary job.
My voluntary job, exactly. And then okay, tell us how to do this, and I'm like, yeah, sure, okay, set up a 3-hour meeting. We'll walk you through it. So I think, if you show your proactiveness there to really, really help them out, then I think things work really well. So that's key. All right. Okay, we really don't have time. Any last final question, and that'll be it.
Karthik, one more, not question, but to everyone. How do you make your webinar more kind of popular? Because I hope that more and more people participate, take interest, just listen and maybe inspired to do what I can do.
Well, you should do that. Everyone in the forum should do that. Yeah. It's not
I've been doing that,
Karthik,
but,
I should do it.
yeah.
Everybody should do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But I think,
also
uh,
on record, thank you to Radio Udaan for really working
Thank
with
you.
us. This gets broadcast on Radio Udaan every Sunday, like the Sunday after this. That really helps us broaden our reach. So thank you so much to the Radio Udaan team for really doing this with us. And Pratik, you had a point.
the only thing I've been telling is what Srinivas said, So I think it's all of us who have to share. Initiatives like these have to go a long way. We have the mediums like social media, with the emails and stuff like that. So I think all of us have to own this up, and then it'll get popular.
Awesome. With that, thank you so much again, all three of you, for joining us, sharing your experiences. It's been really insightful for me personally, and I hope it has been for other people as well. Thank you for those who joined. Really appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Karthik.
And we will be back in 2 weeks with another webinar. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right. Thanks.
जिस शो का आपको बेसब्री से इंतजार है, उस शो को लेके हम हाजिर हैं। पिछली बार से डबल मस्ती आपको करवाएंगे। मस्ती मीन्स ज्योति की बेइज्जती।
बेइज्जती दानिश की भी बहुत होगी, ऐसी कोई बात नहीं है।
Samatram Trust for the Disabled presents Udaan Idol Little Jam.
का करूं सजनी आए न बालम,
इतनी शक्ति हमें दे न दाता, मन का विश्वास कमजोर होना। अब जो किए हो दाता, ऐसा न कीजो।
This show is co-powered by Enable Travels, NIPVG Dehradun, supported by Mitra Jyoti, Bangalore. And don't forget to listen to these mesmerizing and melodious voices every Saturday 9 p.m. onwards and rewebcast every Sunday 4 p.m. onwards only on Radio Udaan, Upside of Life.